The two biggest leagues in South America stand as symbols of contrasting realities. On one side, Brazil's Serie A is thriving with investment, infrastructure, and fierce competition, setting new standards for South American club football. On the other, Argentina's Primera División, rich in history and romance, it is currently struggling to keep pace amidst financial constraints and constant structural changes. Yet, when we shift the focus to their national teams, the story flips entirely. Brazil's once dominant Seleção is facing its toughest period in our lifetime, while Argentina's Albiceleste is on top of the world, basking in unprecedented success. So how did we get here, and what do these contrasting trajectories mean for the future of football in these two giants of the sport? Let's dive in and break it down. First, let's talk about the league structure. These contrasting trajectories are clearly reflected in the difference of league structures. When we think about the world's most competitive leagues, we don't often think of the Brasileirão, but it is quickly becoming a standout. With its rich history, its fiery matches, and a structure that mirrors Europe's top leagues, Brazil's Serie A is more competitive, enticing, and modernized than ever before. With 20 teams and a format resembling Europe's top leagues and 4 direct relegation spots, Brazil's league offers relentless competition. No team, no matter how historic, is safe from the drop. This past season was a perfect example. Historic giants like Corinthians, Copa Libertadores finalist Atlético Mineiro, and last year's Libertadores winners Fluminense all flirted with relegation. And let's not forget, Santos, the club that gifted the world with Pelé and Neymar, was relegated for the first time in its history just a year ago. This year, Atlético Paranaense was relegated, only 3 years after winning the Copa Sudamericana. In the Brasileirão, every match matters, and with 14 continental spots up for grabs, 8 for the Copa Libertadores and 6 for the Copa Sudamericana, clubs are always in the hunt for international qualification. That means that even mid-table battles carry significant stakes, as one win could mean the difference between relegation and continental qualification. This balance keeps fans on the edge of their seats throughout the season. This year, only 3 points separated relegation and Copa Sudamericana qualification, which makes it even tougher for relegated teams to stomach knowing that they were this close to qualify for intercontinental play. The league ended in nail-biting fashion as Botafogo won a tight race, winning their first league title since 1995. Now let's shift our focus to the Argentina's Primera División. Once a global powerhouse, it is now grappling with significant challenges that threaten its competitiveness and stability. Unlike Brazil's streamlined 20-league structure, Argentina has opted for an MLSization following a recent decision to expand its league to 30 teams. This inflated format promises to dilute quality and hinder player development. Relegation has been suspended, undermining the urgency and competitiveness that drive teams to perform at their very best. Instead of fostering elite talent, the chaotic format prioritizes expansion over quality, spreading limited resources even thinner and eroding the foundation of Argentina's once proud footballing system. This bloated league format continues to dilute competition following years of erratic changes. After initially expanding from 20 teams to 30 teams back in 2015, they soon announced their goal of slowly reversing the course and returning back to 20 teams, with 4 relegations and 2 promotions per season until this happened. However, COVID paused relegation, and this recent announcement shows the lack of consistency that hurts Argentinian football as they reverse course yet again to expand to 30 teams. In December 2024, Chiqui Tapia received overwhelming support from the clubs to temporarily suspend relegation and change the format, splitting the season into 2 tournaments, splitting the 30 teams into 2 divisions with a playoff format to determine the winner. This move will bring smaller clubs into the top division, but it has weakened the league standards yet again and reduced the significance of the individual matches. Recent promotion of Deportivo Riesta to the first division is an example of this, With a 3,000 capacity stadium, they have made headlines across the country for all the wrong reasons. Despite putting up a very respectable performance in their inaugural season with wins against River and Independiente and a tie against Boca at the Bombonera. They made headlines by signing an influencer with no skill who was substituted less than a minute into his debut. These gimmicks show the length that these smaller clubs need to resort to achieve media attention for increased sponsorship dollars. The addition of playoffs may be good for ratings, but fewer meaningful games coupled with a convoluted structure have made the league difficult to follow for neutral fans and unattractive for lucrative sponsorships and broadcast deals. In contrast, while Brazil's reforms have driven its clubs to new heights, Argentina's approach risks widening the gap even further. The Argentinian Primera had an exciting season, as it always does, with a 3-horse title race with Vélez winning on the last day, and the fact that Boca and River failed to secure a trophy shows that the title is up for grabs for anyone, which makes the league very exciting. Now let's talk about ownership. The Brasileirão has become a magnet for global investment. From private ownership to lucrative sponsorships, the league is modernizing at a rapid pace. This transformation began in 2018 with a ruling by the Brazilian government allowing football clubs to convert into corporate entities known as Sociedade Anônima do Futebol, or SAFs for short. In other words, publicly owned clubs became corporations. Notable investments include recent Copa Libertadores and Brazilian Serie A champions Botafogo. In January 2022, they had just got promoted from the second division when U.S. investor John Textor acquired a 90% stake in Botafogo. The same year, retired Brazilian World Cup winner Ronaldo bought a controlling stake in his former club Cruzeiro, investing $70 million US. This injection of funds helped promote them back to the first division after 3 years in the second division. This past season, they were Copa Sudamericana finalists, losing out narrowly to Racing Club. On the flip side, the corporatization or the Europeanization of Brazilian football clubs has sparked concerns that it erodes the soul of the sport, stripping away its deep-rooted connection to local communities and fans. The spirit of collective ownership is often replaced by a profit-driven ethos. Historic clubs that once belonged to their members and represented their neighborhoods are now assets in a portfolio, managed by investors with business priorities rather than footballing traditions at heart. The earliest and most infamous example is Red Bull's acquisition of Bragantino. Once a modest club, it is now a competitive force, but this came at a cost of their authentic identity. This sparked outrage amongst its fans and league-wide, and the reaction was similar to the Red Bull takeovers in Germany and Austria. In contrast, Argentinian football, much like its society, reflects a system dominated by socialist measures since the 1950s under Perón. Clubs are publicly owned and members vote for their club presidents, creating a system where the club belongs to everyone and no one at the same time. While this democratic model is romanticized, it often leads to inefficiency, corruption, and an inability to attract large-scale investments. Attempts to modernize and attract investment remain isolated. For instance, Juan Sebastián Verón secured a $100 million investment from American investors to develop his club Estudiantes, rivals of my club Gimnasia Grima de la Plata, but such efforts are the exception rather than the rule. Meanwhile, Argentinian President Javier Milei's push to privatize football clubs to improve efficiency has met strong resistance from those who see it as an attack on tradition. Current AFA President Chiqui Tapia ran for re-election where he was unopposed, which secured his control until 2028, raising further concerns. His controversial decisions, such as suspending relegation and inflating the league, may serve short-term political goals, but threaten the long-term future of Argentinian football. While Argentina currently basks in the glory of being the League of the World Champions, failure to innovate and address these deep-rooted issues could lead to the decline of one of football's most storied leagues. This contrast between the two leagues raises fundamental questions. Can football remain the people's game when financial interests take precedence? And does the drive for modernization risk alienating the very communities that built these clubs into what they are today? For many, the heart of football lies in its grassroots, and corporatization challenges the balance between preserving tradition and embracing progress. Now let's talk about the financial side of things. The league's influx of capital and private equity is reshaping Brazilian football and is attracting worldwide attention. It is modernizing club infrastructure, and the prizes on display are growing. Investors clearly believe that the future of the Brasileirão is bright, and it's only going to get better. The stark disparity in prize money between Argentina and Brazil only underscores the growing gulf between their clubs, particularly in continental success. Argentina's league pays its champion a mere 500,000 US dollars, a figure dwarfed not only by Brazil's Brasileirão, which awards 10 million USD to the winner, but also from a 14 million US payout for the Copa do Brasil winner. Even by neighboring leagues like Uruguay, which gives its winner $1 million, and Peru, which offers its winner 650,000 US dollars. This is made even more confusing as CONMEBOL provided $1 million to each federation to bolster tournament prize money, which begs the question, where did that money go? This underscores that mismanagement and possible corruption in Argentinian football may also explain the lack of a substantial broadcast deal for the league as a whole. This financial divide has tangible results on the pitch. Brazilian clubs, bolstered by superior prize money and resources, have won 6 straight Copa Libertadores titles, further cementing their dominance and compounded by the staggering $23 million prize for winning the Copa Libertadores. Meanwhile, Argentinian clubs, despite its historical dominance in the Copa Libertadores, have failed to capture a title since River won in 2018, where they famously beat their arch-rival Boca in a final that had to take place in Madrid due to security concerns. Since then, Boca is the only Argentine club to make it to the final in 2023. They lost to Fluminense in the final after becoming the only club to advance to the final without winning a single knockout game. In other words, they did it in very unconvincing fashion. Brazilian clubs have closed the divide in the continental competition, as they only trail by 1, with 24 wins compared to Argentina's 25. Now let's take a look at the national teams of both of these countries. The Seleção versus the Albiceleste. In stark contrast to the rising fortunes of its domestic league, the Brazilian national team has produced some of the most disappointing results in its storied history. The Seleção's loss to Argentina at the Maracanã in November 2023 marked the first time they have ever been defeated in a home World Cup qualifying match, a humiliating blow for a nation that once epitomized football dominance. Currently languishing in 5th place in the CONMEBOL qualifiers, Brazil has endured a turbulent period off the pitch, cycling through 3 different managers in just 18 months. Adding to the struggles is the absence of Neymar, the team's marquee player, whose recurring injuries since the 2022 World Cup have left a creative void that Brazil has yet to fill. Without Neymar's flair and brilliance, the Seleção appears disjointed and uninspired, lacking the identity and artistry that once defined Brazilian football. Many argue that the essence of Joga Bonito, Brazil's beautiful free-flowing style of play, is fading, if not entirely dead. Once celebrated for their creativity, audacity, and improvisation, the Brazilian national team now seems to have succumbed to the pressures of modern football's pragmatism and efficiency. This shift can be traced to the increasing Europeanization of Brazilian football, driven largely by the corporatization of the domestic league. As Brazilian clubs have become more structured and results-focused, with heavy European influence in tactics and player development, The artistry that once flourished in local academies has been replaced by a demand for disciplined, tactical, and physically robust players. While this has made Brazilian clubs more competitive in the global market, it has also diluted the expressive, joyful style of play that was once synonymous with Brazilian football. The players now rising through the ranks often lack the raw creativity and improvisational flair that define legends like Pelé, Garrincha, Zico, and Ronaldinho. The focus of winning at all costs has created a system where the creative spirit that has made Brazilian football unique is no longer prioritized. Instead, the Seleção's increasingly mirrors the structured and pragmatic styles of European teams, losing the distinct identity that once set it apart on the global stage. This identity crisis is a critical factor in Brazil's current struggles and raises a daunting question. Can the Seleção rediscover its soul in a footballing world that rewards efficiency over artistry? As an Argentinian supporter, my hope is no, and that they continue to struggle, but I digress. Shifting our focus back to Argentina, the chaotic landscape of the Argentinian league stands in stark contrast to the national team's remarkable success, which has arguably reached its greatest ever era. The Albiceleste have captured 4 titles in just 3 years, including back-to-back Copa America victories in 2021 and 2024, and their crowning achievement, the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Led by the legendary Lionel Andrés Messi, this golden generation has cemented Argentina's place at the pinnacle of world football, reviving national pride and reaffirming its footballing heritage. Yet, beneath this triumph lies a troubling reality. The state of Argentina's domestic league may pose a looming threat to the country's long-term dominance. While Argentina thrives internationally, its domestic competition tells a very different story, and the implications for Argentina's future cannot be overlooked. Historically, the nation's footballing strength has been rooted in its rich domestic talent pool, nurtured through its competitive leagues and passionate club rivalries. However, as the Primera División continues to stagnate, it risks losing its role as a breeding ground for the next generation of stars. While Lionel Messi's era has masked these issues with his brilliance, his inevitable retirement may leave a void that Argentina's fractured system may struggle to fill. And of course, the league's structural instability, inflated 30-team format, and a lack of competitive balance have led to the diluted quality and hindered player development. Relegation has been suspended, undermining the urgency and competitiveness that drive teams to perform their very best. Instead of fostering elite talent, the chaotic format prioritizes expansion over quality, spreading limited resources even thinner and eroding the foundation of Argentina's once proud footballing system. This lack of stability is compounded by its financial struggles. Prize money in Argentina's domestic competition pales in comparison to Brazil, leaving clubs unable to attract or retain top talent. The absence of a lucrative broadcast deal, coupled with mismanagement and public ownership models, has stifled investment and innovation. The question is whether Argentina can sustain its current success without addressing the structural flaws in its domestic league. For now, Argentina continues to bask in the glow of its national team's achievements, but the cracks in its foundation are becoming harder to ignore. With meaningful reform, Argentina's ability to remain a footballing powerhouse in the years to come may be in jeopardy. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way to the end, please feel free to watch one of these other videos. It helps the channel grow. Appreciate it. See you next time. Vamos Argentina.